We are now going to be ready for the next session, which is setting the scene, restructuring finance for water towards better sharing of risks and rewards between providers and recipients of capital. This session is going to be moderated by Sophie Tremolet, who has already taken her seat, and she is the water team lead at OECD Environment Directorate. Sophie leads the water team at the OECD Environment Directorate, advising countries on water, economics, finance, and water quality challenges. She previously established the Nature Conservatory's Europe Freshwater Program and served as senior economist in the World Bank's water practice. Can we give her a warm welcome, please? And now to the special guests that are going to really enrich our discussion today, bringing lifetime experience on how they work on the water sector, starting with His Excellency Dr. Abdulaziz Al-Shobani, who is the Deputy Minister of Water in the Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture of Saudi Arabia. Can we give him a warm welcome, please? Next is Loic Fortune, the President of the World Water Council. Loic is the President of the World Water Council and a renowned water leader. He previously led the water supply company of Marseille and has been instrumental in organizing world water forums around the globe, having first served as WWC president from 2005 to 2012 before resuming the role in 2018. Some people really have a kind of grasp on this issue, but I'm beginning to understand that he is not yet here. So when he comes, inshallah, he's going to join the high table. And in case he doesn't, I'm sure there would be enough experience at hand to do it. And the next is Adnan Bushesh, who is a senior water and sanitation specialist at the World Bank Group. Adnan has been working in this sector and has been focal point for water programs in GCC countries. A warm welcome, please. Next speaker is Shema Gargash, who is Director of Energy and Sustainability at the UAE Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She has been working in the water sector as well. She serves as a special envoy for climate, representing the UAE global sustainability discussions, and has a background in policy, planning, and diplomacy with the Foreign Ministry. Okay. Yes, she will be arriving, and once she comes, also she is going to join us on the high table. And finally, Henk Ovink, the Executive Director, Global Commission on the Economics of Water. He has been working also in this sector, and he's a renowned water ambassador. He previously served as the Netherlands Special Envoy for International Water Affairs and co-led the Landmark 2023 UN Water Conference to elevate water's profile in global policy. So with this, I hand over to Sophie, who is going to overtake the moderation of the event. Welcome, Sophie.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. That's my pleasure to be here with you today. And thank you all for making your way from across the world. So as you heard, my name is Sophie Tremolet. I lead the water team within the OECD Environment Directorate, working with Walido and Furkan and the team. I joined the OECD 1 year ago, following a career of working on water economics and finance. So water economics and finance is really at the heart of what we do. At the OECD, we work on organizing these roundtables, but also on a range of topics that you will be able to explore in more detail. We also work on national policy dialogues on water, and we had the pleasure and privilege last year to work with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, supporting them with carrying out a study, very ambitious study on valuation of water across the kingdom and across multiple uses. In effect, we have this OECD Council recommendation on water that lays out sound principles for water policies, and we support countries in their implementation, as our motto is better for policies for better lives. So we're currently working in Mongolia, in Uzbekistan, in the Philippines, or in Senegal. This is a very big part of our work. So I'm delighted to welcome you to this 12th roundtable, which is focused on sustainable water investments. As you heard, we've held this roundtable since 2017, and each time we decide to focus on a top-of-mind topic for the water sector in terms of finance. Upcoming topics, for example, will include the financing of freshwater restoration ecosystems, embedding water-related risks in financial supervision, working with central banks and financial supervisors, or the topic of equitable investment in the run-up to the UN Water Conference. Today, our topic is that of sustainable investment for water, and that originated from a focus on Islamic finance, in partnership with the Islamic Development Bank. Because we saw, as Idrissa pointed out, that there is a very large pool of available Islamic finance, which is currently untapped for water sector, even though the water sector is very much aligned with the principles that Islamic finance is looking to support. But in examining this topic, we quickly became aware that these underlying concepts and principles are, in fact, of taking an asset-based approach to financing, on being focused on sustainability and better sharing of risks between providers and recipients of capital, are very much aligned with what the water sector needs at large. So that's why we decided to broaden the conversation and to discuss the topic of Islamic finance in a broader context, looking at how these principles may inspire and be aligned with everything that we need. And this was very much aligned as well with a recent report from the Global Commission for the Economics of Water, which Walid mentioned, that is calling for better sharing of risks and rewards between providers of capital and recipients, and also for de-risking of private finance to reconsider how risks and rewards are shared amongst stakeholders. However, we're conscious of the fact that the report from the Global Commission remained fairly high level, so we felt that it was important to drill down and to identify what in practice that means and what are financing models that we could highlight. So that's what we sought to do in these background papers that have been referred to, in which you can really dig deeper. And we're very interested in your comments, of course, on these background papers, because the intention following the roundtable will be to publish a report that brings it all together, based on the background papers, but also the proceedings of our conversations today. So to kick off this session, I'm delighted to start with a keynote address from His Excellency Abdulaziz Al-Shaibani, who's the Deputy Minister for Water in the Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And he will share with us experience from the host country for this event, Saudi Arabia, with developing sound water policies for water management, which has paved the way for financing an ambitious program of water infrastructure in the kingdom, for which investing in water is an issue of life and death and critical to sustaining its rapidly growing economy. His Excellency, thank you very much.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Excellencies, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to start by thanking the Islamic Development Bank for hosting this roundtable, and thank the organizers of this important event. I understood from Walid that it only started in 23. And you already have met 12 times, or this is the 12th time of this roundtable, and this is excellent, and I'm sure only positive things will come out of these meetings. I also appreciate the role that the Islamic Development Bank is playing, and also His Excellency Dr. Al-Jasir is leading MVPs in committing to invest what I understood is around 50 billion for the water security, and this was presented in COP28, and also His Excellency Al-Jasir read this statement in the One Water Summit in early December of last year. This is excellent, and I can assure you that the water sector in the world needs this commitment and much more also to bridge the gap in investing in water. Okay, coming from the water sector and coming out of discussions of the kickoff meeting of the 11th World Water Forum, we can say that the global water challenges are significant, are still there today. 43% of the world's population lacks safely managed sanitation services, and 27% of the population lacks safely managed drinking water. There are many statistics and facts that come out of these organizations, the World Bank Group, the World Water Council, and OECD, that all agree to these numbers. We all know that water is not just a necessity, a basic service, but it is also a major economic enabler for all sectors. And still, the global financing gap in the water sector remains significant. And bridging this gap requires innovative thinking, bold action, and collaboration across borders. And this is not just geographic borders or country borders, but also borders across sectors and across organizations. Let me begin by highlighting Saudi Arabia's contributions toward advancing water governance and sustainability. In this context, during Saudi Arabia's G20 presidency in 2020, we placed water at the forefront of the global agenda. For the first time, water was addressed as a distinct topic with high economic impact, and we initiated discussions on its critical role in sustainable development. We also organized ministerial level meetings to ensure that water receives the focused attention it deserves. We also adopted dialogue on water by the G20 representatives, which emphasized the importance of global cooperation to address water challenges. These efforts set the stage for stronger international collaboration and more effective governance in the water sector. At home here in Saudi Arabia, I think Saudi Arabia is leading or has been leading by example. Through Vision 2030, we have implemented transformative initiatives to ensure that efficient and sustainable management of water, resources. Our national water strategy and flagship projects have significantly improved water efficiency, benefiting millions of residents in Saudi Arabia. We are proud to have invested heavily in desalination technology powered by renewable energy and also in the reuse of treated wastewater for agricultural, for industrial, and environmental uses. These innovations demonstrate our commitment to sustainability and economic development. One of the key achievements has been the development of public-private partnerships. And this is through the Saudi Water Partnership Company. These partnerships have mobilized over $10 billion of private capital for water infrastructure projects. They have also delivered major successes, including constructing some of the world's largest and most efficient desalination plants, wastewater treatment plants, and transmission lines or systems of lines. I will not give examples of these projects, but with us today, my colleague, the Vice President of the Saudi Water Partnership Company, he can highlight to you in another session or through meetings of the success and the efforts that are ongoing in this regard. Internationally, Saudi Arabia has substantially contributed to supporting water development in other countries. And over the years, the kingdom has provided more than $6 billion funding to developing countries for water-focused projects. These projects span critical areas such as infrastructure, development, clean water, access and sanitation systems, all aimed at improving lives of millions of people who are in need of these services. Saudi Arabia has also established a global water organization and also an international water research center as part of the ongoing commitment toward water sustainability. These institutions aim to advance science, foster innovation, and strengthen global collaboration in the water sector. Looking ahead, we are preparing to host the World Water Forum, the 11th World Water Forum in 2027. Only yesterday, we concluded the kick-off meeting, which took place over the past 2 days. The kick-off meeting of this forum. Many of the attendees of that kick-off meeting are with us today. We had many insightful discussions. We listened to representatives of governments, organizations, civil societies, to shape really the future of water in the world. The forum will focus on key themes as water finance. Water finance is one of the major topics that will be discussed not only in 2027, but from now until then, and all of our stakeholders' engagement. And I would like to invite all of you really to watch for the calls of meetings and the discussions, whether it is in person or online, to contribute and tell us and tell the moderators and the leaders of these discussions of the priorities that need to be addressed in the World Water Forum. These discussions will explore how to balance economic growth with sustainable water management. As we continue championing these efforts, we remain committed to making water a driver for economic prosperity, environmental resilience, and social welfare. Despite these advancements, the global water sector still faces challenges. Closing the finance gap requires innovative funding models that support infrastructure development and ensure the long-term operation and maintenance of water systems. The word innovation is not limited to technology and science. It is also, I heard it today, several of our colleagues mentioning innovative funding and innovative financing and blended finance, Islamic finance, and public-private partnerships are all crucial to achieving this. These approaches mobilize private capital while ensuring sustainability, inclusivity, and equity. To affirm our commitment to advancing global water sustainability, I encourage you all to share the insights you have gained with institutions and communities. We will work together to develop financing models and operational frameworks that meet the long-term needs of water systems. By combining our strengths, we can transform water from a global challenge into a source of opportunity, a driver of progress that benefits future generations. Finally, on behalf of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, I thank you all for your dedication to this vital cause. And also again, thank the organizers of the roundtable meeting, and again, thank the Islamic Development Bank for hosting this important meeting. And again, I would like to remind you with the theme of the World Water Forum, a better tomorrow, or action for a better tomorrow. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, His Excellency, for this framing. So now I'd like to turn to our panel of eminent panelists here, who will get each 5 minutes to start presenting their point of view on the question, and then the idea is really to open up the discussion with the room, both here, those present here, and also online. So we will hear from, two multilateral development banks, but also we want to see how this conversation can be included as in the broader events that are taking place on water that have been mentioned a number of times, including the UN Water Conference and the World Water Forum. So let me turn first to Dr. Issa Fai. He's Director General of the Global Practice and Partnerships at the Islamic Development Bank. And I'd like you to tell us more about how Islamic finance can be a source of inspiration for strengthening the sustainability of financing models for water investments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie, for this introduction. And then welcome again to all. But if you allow me, I would like just to step back a bit, and then before I come in jumping into how Islamic finance can contribute. This is a word of advocacy actually for the water sector. And then I thank really Idris, Nizar, and the water team in the bank working with OECD for making this happen. The reason I'm saying this is that I have the profound belief that the water sector has been neglected somehow. If you look at the global agenda, all this convention of the parties on the climate, desertification, and all these things, they tend to forget the water, and water is central of all of those things. And if you look at the agenda and the discussion, it's always a little bit marginal. There are some discussion at the global level. I think there is something that is really missing. And since Mar del Plata in the 70s, we have not seen major engagement around water and water sector. So I think there is something there that, and as a consequence, we're not surprised that we are off track of achieving SDG 6. I don't know who's surprised, but I'm not. Because I've not seen that kind of passion and push for changes and push for innovation in the sector for a long time. I think that's one thing that I think we need to all recognize and collect to this. And Honorable Minister, you said 2 days ago at the kickoff that half of the world faces water scarcity issues every year. And then we have billions of people who are still out of reach of access to drinking water and sanitation. So it's daunting. The issue is there, and we have not been able as a global community to push it. But there is hope in the air. Hope is coming, and I like this. This is why I come to this round table. And thank you guys for pushing it, because it is setting the tone and moving into the UAE and Senegal event that will happen in 2026, and then the 11th Water Forum. So things are coming back, and that's really the positive note of this. It was not there, but I'm really glad that we're pushing all together, OECD and others, and we need to keep the momentum. It needs to get back high in the agenda. So that's the first thing that I wanted to say. Now, to come to your question, I wanted to put it in perspective. The way I see it, we in the Islamic Development Bank sitting here, we are the only multilateral development bank from the South, by the South, and delivering for the South. Our constituency, 57 member countries are all from the South, but they span 4 continents. We are in 4 continents. We are not only a regional bank, we are kind of a global bank. And as such, we're experiencing all the global challenges around water, from Suriname to Indonesia. So we're living it. This is something that is not really policy and issues. It is really reality for us. And hence, our work is important in the water sector. So that's really important. This is why we care. If you ask me, why do you care? We care because our shareholding, our member countries are really suffering from this issue from different ways and different shape of forms, right? So this is one. We really, it's not incidental, it's not accidental. We are really living it, and we need to support our member countries. And if you look at the numbers in the MENA regions, this is really one of the most water scarce regions. We all know it. I mean, the average annual per capita water availability is 480 cubic meters. And then countries are suffering, and there is the economic loss of that. There is always the economic dimension on these issues. These gaps have economic consequences. We are losing 6 to 14 GDP points per year, right? And you go to Sub-Saharan Africa, clean drinking water is out of reach. 387 million people don't have it. They don't have access to sanitation, right? In Asia, there's a different dynamics in Asia because of the 1.7 billion people living there. What we have there is a several water management system because of urbanization, demographics, and economic growth. The system is not longer able to support the needs of the country. So the issues are different, but we are living it, and we see that in all different countries. But what struck me is that we all agree. I mean, Honorable Minister is talking about the water as an enabler. My colleagues, Jamil, was saying that we all need water from everything that we do. So water is a product, and that in economics, I'm an economist, and I think economic. When a product is scarce, rarity, and then in front you have demand, you have a market. Why is it coming? Why isn't the money is not flowing in there? Is the problem. It doesn't make economic sense to me that we have a scarce product, we have a market, and still we have challenges to get money flowing in to this sector. So, and this is where the Islamic Development Bank can come in, and I'll touch into that a little bit later. So the gap is enormous, 130 to 140 billion a year. No institution can do it alone, right? And the situation, the economic situation now with the geopolitics, the fiscal space and all that, the government, such Idrissa was saying, they will not be able to increase the spending 3 times. Just forget it. It's not going to happen. Right. Then you look into the ODA. ODA is, from now on, I think, no longer an option. We will not, it's not sustainable to bank on ODA. So we left with bringing the private sector. We left to have also the MDBs coming in a stronger way to help and support in these things. So the Islamic finance is now an alternative. This is where I come in and try to pitch a little bit for the Islamic finance as a solution. Right. So this global Islamic finance market is big. It's huge. Estimated to 3.4 trillion in 2024. And this encompasses different branches. You can talk about the Sukuk, the Takaful, the Islamic banking, Islamic funds, all of that. All the asset classes will give you this amount. So how can we leverage this? I think this is where the principle of Islamic finance can be inspiration. And what we have in that principle is to emphasize the ethical dimension of Islamic finance. So we promote social responsibility. We're not looking only for profit, but we're looking to maximize impact. We are impact maximizers, not profit maximizers, even though you can have both, right? So another thing that is important to mention is that we echo the sustainability goals. We have this kind of, there is a kind of alignment between Islamic finance and the sustainability and the ESG principles. I think that's a very important thing to mention. And we have this do no harm. We make sure that our investment do no harm to the communities and rather are impactful to them. But the most important thing coming to my economics and anyone's thinking is that how are we going to make sure that the Islamic finance can be a solution? One thing that is important is, our principle is profit sharing and profit and loss sharing that is embedded in the Islamic finance. Because investors will react to risk-return profile. They will look at the risk and they will look at the profile. Can I make money? And then how I'm going to manage the risk? And then the Islamic finance, because of its principle, can help de-risk the transaction. And this is one of the issues in the water sector. How can we de-risk the water sector to make sure that, and in Islamic finance, you have the profit sharing and loss sharing mechanism that helps really make sure that we have a collaborative approach towards investment. And it helps really deliver onto this thing. And if you take all those principles, the investment side of it, the profit sharing, the ethical parts, and so there is a very valuable value proposition that Islamic finance is bringing there because of its in principle it is embedded in. And it will make investors more kind of comfortable because of the profit and loss sharing mechanism that is there. So you de-risk some of the transaction. So the investors can come in. And we have been doing it actually. And since 1975, the Islamic Development Bank has been investing in the water sector. And the first investment actually was in Cameroon. It was a Songolo Dam that was financed by the bank. So since 75, we have done 15 billion, as I mentioned earlier, in Islamic finance using different instruments. The Istina for major infrastructure. We do installment sale for rural and urban water projects. We do Ijara, which is a leasing equivalent for asset-backed financing. And last but not least, we also support institutions. We use box and technical assistance to prepare program and project. So there is really a menu of instruments that the Islamic Bank have been developing, which is based on those principles that can inspire and be an alternative. Because we're not looking into leveraging or multiplying just on the base of making profit, but we want to deliver for the community. So I think that this is what I was saying could be what the Islamic finance can contribute into this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And certainly you're bringing the passion to the cause. So I think we need that level of energy to really effectively work together and see how we can combine Islamic finance as well, perhaps with other types of finance provided by multilateral development banks or others. We'll have sessions on that, on how these can be blended, and we will also look at the details of what it means and what type of deals have emerged. So with that, I'd like to turn to Adnan Rocher, who's a senior water and sanitation specialist at the World Bank, and an organization which is one of the founding members for the Roundtable. So Adnan, could you please tell us more, based on your experience of working on water and sanitation in the region and elsewhere, but the enabling conditions for providing finance, what do you see as necessary reforms and the role of multilateral development banks such as the World Bank? Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks, Sophie. Glad to be here. Let me pick up on what Isa was talking about the global challenge and the perspective for solving this global challenge, because I totally agree. We have been talking a lot about the water problem, but we have not been actually doing much to address the issue. And I think it's important to focus our direction. What is the problem? Why is the private sector Yeah, excellent. So
what is the issue between water and the private sector? There's no love relationship. There's no hate relationship, but it's not chemistry. It's not working. So why is that? And I don't claim to have the answer because the answer is also different in each country. But from my experience, there is a general phenomenon that is not making this work. The risk, the appetite of the private sector is not there. There's high risk in water infrastructure. There are low returns in water investments, particularly in the Middle East. The political landscape, makes things even more difficult. There's not enough predictability in the water sector, and quite often we see investments in the water sector being built, but not properly maintained. Operation and maintenance is done clearly, not properly. And then there is neglect of this infrastructure, then you have to rebuild it again. And this is a phenomenon that we see a lot in our client countries, and this needs to stop. And so this is critical, I think, to get to the foundation, to the root of the issue. And so there is a plan for every stakeholder on the table to do something about it. I think governments need to step up their role in terms of enabling a regulatorily transparent framework with reducing the risk of the private sector. But more importantly, utilities at the service level need to improve their efficiency. If there is no trust between the household, the private citizen, and the utility, then the citizens will not be paying for the services. And if there's no payment for this service, there is no financial sustainability. And if there's no financial sustainability, there is no creditworthiness. And if there's no creditworthiness, there's no private sector. And that is the reason. This is the vicious circle that we're looking at, and we need to break that circle. Now, we come in as development institutions, development partners, and try to provide technical assistance. But I think we're not doing enough on that. And this is why I agree with Isa. But I think each water project needs to have a component that looks at those aspects to ensure that there is proper regulatory framework, to ensure there is utility performance enhancement, proper efficiency, enhanced creditworthiness, and doing better around those issues. We're here in Saudi Arabia, in Jeddah. We see Shuaibah desalination plant, one of the largest desalination plants or complexes, producing something like 2.2 million cubic meters of water daily. The production efficiency is very high. Saudi Arabia has been able to produce desalinated water at a very high level. The cost per cubic meter of energy here in Shuaibah plant, and I visited a month ago, just before Ramadan, is 2.3 kilowatts per hour for each cubic meter of water produced. This is very low energy consumption when it comes to desalination. Of course, there are advancements in reverse osmosis, in energy, and different innovations that led to that. But in addition to that, also as the Deputy Minister was talking about, there were innovations in the private sector. And Saudi Arabia was not able to cover the costs. The tariffs in Saudi Arabia did not cover the cost, but still, in spite of this, they were able to bring in the private sector. I mean, maybe there are some lessons here we can learn from and forward to the rest of the world. So I want to focus on the foundational work, and we want you to leave with the impression that there are basically the foundational work is governments need to focus on the regulatory regime, and utilities need to work on their performance. And this is my main message to you. Thank you, Sophie.
Still facing a problem with microphones. So thanks, Adnan. So you'll have to, Hank, you'll have to come here.
Oh, wow. Just very hard. Okay.
So I'd like to welcome our next panelist, who's Hank Govek, who's I think we need no introduction. You are the Special Envoy on Water for the Netherlands and currently the Executive Director of the Global Commission of the Economics of Water. So what I'd like to ask you is, what does it mean in practical terms to restructure finance for water towards better sharing of risks and rewards? That was a key message from the Global Commission's report. How do you see that working out in practice? And does, the program as well that we put together for this roundtable somehow resonate with what you had envisaged in the, lines set up for the Global Commission's report?
Thank you so much, Sophie. This works, until it doesn't. So we'll see. There's always an opportunity. First of all, I want to thank both the OECD and the Islamic Development Bank of putting this event together. Of course, the World Bank or the World Water Council, as well as my own government, the Dutch government, for putting together this roundtable. I think now 8 years ago was the first in 2017. So I would tend to disagree with your call that this is the first time we're doing our effort on water since 1977. In 2023, there was the second UN conference. I had the honor to co-lead. So the attention on water is changing. I think the conversation we had just now, and compliments again for the leadership of Saudi Arabia in this coming from the World Water Forum preparation. The conversations on water changed. I think 10 years ago, in the lead up to the SDGs, the Sendai framework, the Addis Ababa framework on financing for development, and the Paris Agreement, you couldn't find water. It was my first year as water ambassador. It was very hard. Now, the conversation changed. It doesn't mean that we yet know how to deliver, but it definitely changed. So I think we have to capitalize on this moment. Now, to your question, Sophie, and I brought some copies of the executive summary of our Global Commission on the Economics of Water report. And Walid and the team, thanks so much for being anchor for to deliver that. I think we have to start to reimagine what risk is. We have such a weird focus on risk. In the financial sector, in government, and in private sector. We don't like risk. So what we do is we imagine that we can organize risk by carving everything up in small bits and pieces. So we can more or less assume that we are able to manage it. And what happens is that we focus on the short term and get our profits. But we also limit cross-sectoral, cross-border, cross all these alignments approaches because we find it too complex. So we silo everything up. The problem with that is that it is only, we can call it now maladaptation because we have that word. It only gives us a little relief in the short term. So we move from today to tomorrow. We capture some of our profits, and then we're faced with our losses. Because with climate change, with desertification, with bad land use management, with water insecurity across the board, like half of the world is already facing, that only gives us a relief from today to tomorrow. We like to capture those profits on the very short term, but then we're hit with massive losses. So we have to not only reimagine our conception of risk, we have to redevelop the way we validate and evaluate on a longer term, way more comprehensive approaches. And it's possible. It's not only about bringing the longer term perspective in, it's also making sure that we embrace the complexity across all those sustainable development goals. That we not only look at the risk and reward of biodiversity and nature, but also its links to the economy, to social development, to equity and financial stability. And that is happening as we speak. Nordic Development Bank just announced last week, I'm not sure about the date, that nature is now part of their risk and value-based approach. Why? Because nature is hitting back at us. It is increasing risk unless we take it into our business plans, our approaches. And with water, it is the same. So We have to look at the long term in a very holistic manner and capture that. The only way we can do it is if we work together. And this is beyond the abstract public and private. This is looking at every sector in public and private. Water is not managed by water managers. Water is managed by people that manage the land, by the farmers. Water is managed by the industries. Water is managed by the mayors. Water is managed by the financiers that allocate funds in very harmful ways. Water is managed by all those harmful subsidies that we find in agriculture. 550 billion a year that actually undermine that same dollars investors in those 550 because water is more scarce, less secure after those investments. So we really have to think beyond water into the way how we manage our lands. And then we come to the Global Commission on the Economic Support, the water report. Water is also beyond the water that we see. It is in our soils, it's in our plants, it's in our land. If you manage land, you manage your rain. If land is able to hold water better, it helps us in the stability of a water cycle for transpiration and evaporation, but also in the extremes. When water rains now, we have less fresh water, but it comes in high intensity moment in our arid lands that are demolished by our economic practices. We're not able to hold this. So the key message is, you could say, is this comprehensive approach that brings the long-term value. We have validation models for that, but we shy away from them. We think they are too complex. Our boards do understand this. In the Netherlands, we have a water bank. It was established not 5 years ago in the context of the SDGs, 10 years ago. No, it was established in 1954 to ensure that mixed with private capital goes to water security at large. Too much, too little, and polluted. Why? Because it's bankable. This bank attracts private capital. Why? Because it is interested for the private sector. So the moment we say water is not of interest to the private sector, it's a lie. It's not the case. We have to provoke public and private sector with these approaches that are long-term, that are based on risk evaluation, that cut across all those sectors, that bring together those partners, and as we say, are mission-oriented. So increase the scope, increase the table of partners, increase your timeline to be able to capture risks and rewards and be able to diversify, address inequalities. And you know me a bit. I would not stop talking unless I mention also diversify who we have at the table. The age has to go down. We have to make sure that and people like me have to leave. So I'm way too old. I'm also Global North. I can be part of the conversation, but we have to diversify the partners and the audience that we speak and bring the youth and different sectors and generations to the table. I also think we're a little bit male dominant in this room. That's okay. It's not to blame, but we have to make sure that the voices that make the decisions are as diversified too. So diversification, inclusivity, long-term approaches, and a different perception on how we manage water, because we don't manage water as a water sector, we manage water as a world, and the world has to understand they have a stake, an opportunity, and an enormous asset. Last, of course, pricing. We talked about it a little. You're an economist. And it's scarce, we don't price water. We have to price water. Of course, not as a panacea, because if half of the world doesn't have access to water and there's no link to infrastructure, pricing doesn't work. But pricing is part of the toolbox in the context on how we diversify our approaches. So diversification, complexity are no things to be afraid of. I think they're amazing, and the solution space water provides for any economic development that we see. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Henk. I think we're waiting for last panelist. So in that period of time, like to open the room for questions. You've heard a lot of, very stimulating speeches. Also, I think what is very interesting is the need to bring others to the table. And this is something that we are very aware of at the OECD, because one of the key things that we work on is integrating water in broader economic policy making. And I mentioned also financial supervision, because as you mentioned, water-related risks are really emerging and becoming extremely material, so need to be considered by financial supervisors and economic policymakers. It still doesn't tell us how we can attract more investment into water, however, and the risk-rewards equation still needs to be addressed through innovative models, because we can put more spotlights on the issue and attract interest, but we, as the water sector, we still need to come up with solutions, I would say. So with that, I'd like to open the room for questions. Anybody? Yeah, at the back here.
Good morning, all. My name is Eric Labey. I'm the CEO of KIFWA. KIFWA stands for Kenya Innovative Finance Facility for Water. We're based in Kenya, in Nairobi. What we do is early stage investment in all kinds of water initiatives, and we co-develop. And related to what the panelists said, I think there is appetite from the private sector to invest in the water space. That appetite is there. No more risk adverse. I think what is lacking is appetite from the financial sector to step into that early phase. And that is what Mr. was saying. It's about the risk. As an organization, is embracing the risk. We take the risk to the early stage. So, for example, if we put in 250,000 euros, we have to leverage that money to about, let's say, 20 million. Average factor of about 40. So, we need $250,000 in the early stage to entrepreneurs who are trying to go into the water space. We bring it up to 20 million, 500,000, let's say 500,000 to 20 million. Then people are talking about blending finance, but it's not really blending finance. What we currently face with our organization is we do the heavy lifting, we do the early stage, we take the risk, we put in, for example, 500,000, and then in a later stage, a financial institution is willing to put in 20 million, and then they call it blending finance. But of course, it's not really blending the finance, because we take over the risk, and then it becomes a 20 million project, and then, yes, then people are willing to participate and the risk. So the question is about risk sharing. Is the financial sector, and perhaps the question is as well to the banking sector, are they also willing to share the risk stage? Because currently we are facing that everybody is happy with organizations like KIFWA because we take the risk. And yes, then there's blending finance, but it's not really blending. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So that's probably a question for Dr. Issa. How do you, where do you position yourself in terms of risk sharing, and are you able to engage in these early stages of project development?
Thank you. I thank you for the question. I think I already mentioned it when I was talking about how we can bring in the Islamic finance by using this principle of profit sharing and loss sharing mechanism. And it is embedded in most of our instruments. So by nature, by bringing Islamic finance, we can definitely manage and de-risk a little bit that part. And I agree with you. The main issue in this bringing the private capital is around the risk issues. And then also, I agree with you. I totally agree on the pricing. Those are two fundamental questions. And then I think, adding to that, the foundation that our colleagues mentioned earlier, I think that's how you could really have this long-term perspective. And I cannot agree more on risk. Because if you look at risk, the way it is even perceived, there is a disconnect between the perception of risk of the real risk that's on the ground. And there are some studies, I remember one of the reports that I read a couple of years back that was demonstrating that in Africa, in the infra sector, the perceived risks were way above the real risk and there was a little bit of NPL in that sector. I don't remember personally, but just to say that I agree with you that we need to have a different way of assessing risk in some of these sectors. And one other thing that to add to the issue that we are talking about is that I have the sentiment, I'm not a water guy, that water looks like a social thing. It's not maybe bankable. It's just you need to get the Ministry of Water to take care of the utilities in the country and all that. I have the impression that people are not looking at it as something that is a venture that they can invest and so on. So risk is absolutely important, and this is why I think the Islamic finance instruments, for example, the asset-backed nature of our instrument, if you take the leasing, the ijara kind of thing, would help you really avoid some of the risks that you have in some of the transactions. So I think that that's really our value addition into that, and in top of the ethical nature, because we really in our investment are trying to look into the communities that we are serving. It is socially responsible. We need to make sure that we deliver for those in needs. So yes, I think profit sharing, loss sharing mechanism that we have in our instrument is helping. And it works with the water management system also. It is in line actually with, my team was telling me that it's really in line. And the good thing that we are doing here is that we are trying to have in this conversation a discussion or a reflection on water as a key enabler and an important asset, and then the Islamic principles that we really think if we can leverage them, because I don't want to go through all the instruments, because you have also the sukuks that can be kind of leverage to deliver in some of these large ticket infrastructure around the water sector, if you will. So yes, I hope it gives you some elements on how the Islamic finance and this principle can be used for.
Thank you, and I hope it can kickstart a conversation about how to combine Islamic finance with other types of finance, which is, part of the idea behind this roundtable is to see how this could be leveraged more and blended because it hasn't been used sufficiently enough.
Sophie, can I have just a footnote on Hank position just to clarify my thought on this?
Maybe I'll come back to you because our fourth panelist has arrived. So we're delighted to have you here. Ms. Shaima Gargash is Director of Energy and Sustainability at the UAE Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And you didn't get the benefit of a session, but it would be very interesting to hear from you how you see the process of the UN 2026 Water Conference that is co-hosted by the UAE, and particularly the topic of finance within the conference. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you all. First of all, I'd like to sincerely apologize, but it was out of my hand. We had a bit of a sandstorm in Dubai, so my flight got delayed. But thank you all for being here. Thank you all for your patience, and thank you for continuing the dialogue on water and finance. Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here today and at this important event on financing water. And I'd like to first start by thanking the co-organizers, the Islamic Development Bank and OECD, for putting together this really critical roundtable. And I sincerely apologize for not being able to listen through the conversation. Obviously, to explore funding and financing models that can foster greater sustainability and resilience of water-related investments. And driving tangible progress in water financing remains a top priority for the UAE as we look ahead to the 2026 UN Water Conference with our colleagues in Senegal. In partnership with Senegal, where we are steadfast in our commitment to leading key initiatives on water-related financing and investments. We recognize these as critical enablers to achieving Sustainable Development Goal 6 on ensuring the availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. And we all know the world is not on track when we talk about SDG 6. And water remains significantly underfunded across all sectors of the economy. And recent estimates indicate that in most countries, annual public spending on water amounts less than 0.5% of GDP. The The private sector contributes less than 2% of total water financing, while only 3% of global finance is directed towards water-related initiatives. And overall, to meet SDG 6 and fulfill our global water commitments, an estimated $6.7 trillion in investment is needed. Bridging this investment gap in water remains one of the greatest challenges of our time. However, we are confident that together we can make this change. It's only through collective action and strong partnership that we can turn this vision into reality. And the 2026 UN Water Conference presents us with a unique opportunity to take bold, decisive steps forward. And the UAE and Senegal are committed to driving an inclusive, extensive, and collaborative preparatory process towards the conference, and a process that brings together and connects everyone across borders, across communities, and across sectors, which we have been doing diligently for over 8 months. And as many of you know, we commenced our informal consultations for the 2026 UN Water Conference in May of last year, notably at the 10th World Water Forum in Bali, where we came together sharing a deep sense of ambition, hope, and commitment. And we carried these strong feelings with us throughout the year before and after the adoption of the Modalities Resolution in September 2024. From World Water Week to UNGA to Cairo Water Week to COP29 and UNCCD COP16. Building on the strong foundation that we have built together, we were excited to formally kick off the preparatory process last month by convening the organizational session of the 2026 UN Water Conference, representing the first mandated meeting as per the Modalities Resolution. The organizational session took place on March 3rd at the UN headquarters in New York, where over 70 participants from member states and stakeholders shared their recommendations for the themes of the interactive dialogues. And we also recently closed the online survey on our website, where we approximately received 500 inputs from stakeholders around the themes. We look forward to building on the takeaways from the organizational session and the survey to identify the themes of the upcoming 6 interactive dialogues, which will be finalized at the high-level meeting convened by the President of the General Assembly on July 9th in New York. And while the specific themes of the interactive dialogues are still to be decided, it's clear from the outset that the 2026 UN Water Conference will place a strong emphasis on finance and investments. This was a key message we heard loud and clear from the organizational session on March 3rd. With this in mind, we view this roundtable on financing water as a crucial preparatory step towards the conference. We look forward to hearing your ideas and learning about the innovative initiatives that stakeholders are working on. And together we can explore opportunities to build on this momentum and strengthen our partnership and ensure that the UN 2026 Water Conference serves as a pivotal moment for water financing. And we count on everyone in this room and beyond to really support this process. And we look forward to a fruitful discussion, which I know you've had. And I would like to hear more about that moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for emphasizing this continuum and this ability to input into the UN Water Conference. And then, would you like to? No. Oh. So we getting near the closing of this session, but I'd like to have 1 or 2 more questions before we close. We'll eat a little bit into the coffee break, but just to give an opportunity for people to react. So I had 1 and then 2, and then yeah.
Hear me? Yes. Hi. Thank you very much. I'm Faisal Al-Jihani. I'm working with the ISDB in the operation team for the GCC and Yemen countries. And we have been engaged last year with what is called the electricity or power interconnection project among the region. And I was thinking what we can get thought from the panelists about the idea of having interconnection project, regional interconnection project for water sector. That's thank you.
Did you have a specific question or was?
No, just to see what is the thought of having interconnection project for water sector within the regional countries.
Okay, we'll take a few more questions. So there was one here and then one here. Yeah.
My name is Adnan, Dr. Adnan Aziz. I'm the Chief Program Officer for Global Islamic Finance Impact Program for Climate, Nature, and Development. I'm actually, it's partly to contribute to the first question and also to perhaps shed a bit of a light on where I think, and it is also going to be potentially a question, Dr. Issa, to yourself, but generally to the panelists ahead
It's
as well.
difficult to hear you. I don't know.
You can hear you.
Yeah.
Use this mic.
Thank you. Hopefully this is better. Okay, so what I wanted to say was that when it comes to Islamic banking and finance industry and its contribution and its ability to fund not only water for that matter, but certainly in this context, water, we also need to remember, while there are a lot of instruments you mentioned, Dr. Issa, earlier on, profit sharing as well, but we need to remember that Islamic banking and finance industry is just like a bank. The conventional banking and finance industry operates with certain limitations of its own. We cannot and should not be expecting, to be fair with them, that if they're sitting on a fiduciary capital in a regulated structure, to just go and take that high risk of a venture capitalist, just as our colleague from Kenya was saying. What we need, however, is to promote these type of instruments, more of Islamic venture capitalist institutions. We need more of Islamic private equity institutions, which is what we are currently lacking. This is where the appetite for risk sharing lies. We cannot fairly, to be fair, cannot expect the banks and financial institutions from Islamic industry to really take that risk. That's not their mandate, and they're not permitted by the regulators to take that kind of a risk either. So that is one point I just wanted to make. And hence, for that reason, I mean, to point blank call it, it's not blending, it is, I mean, Islamic banks and financial institutions can only commit later at that stage. So it's only my point here is, and Dr. Issa would also want to hear, is Islamic Development Bank working towards enabling creation and promotion of Islamic venture capitalists and Islamic private equity institutional building, because that is where we can really make the change in the whole ecosystem. Banks alone on their own, they cannot. Is there something along those lines? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There's two more questions. Sorry. Yeah. One here, then one at the... Okay, ladies first.
Yes, hi. I'm Dalia Abdelader. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer.
This is not working. Sorry. I'm going to play the MC here. There's no way. Here.
I'm honored. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I'm Dalia Abdelader. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer of Commercial International Bank. And I was provoked by the comment. It's very interesting. And I'm refuting it. And I couldn't wait till my panel takes place tomorrow to tell you that it's time to revisit the role of commercial banks. And what I'm bringing in tomorrow, I hope you will be present tomorrow to discuss how it's urgent and compelling to redefine the role of commercial banks. It's completely under-tapped. I'm in it, and I can see that banks have the convening power. So I hope I'll have time to talk about it tomorrow, but this is a key step to redress the lack of synergies. I mean, this is something that has been stressed today. Every actor, every stakeholder is doing his part, and it's not working because there are no synergies. And I think commercial banks are very much empowered if they redress their systems to prove the business case of water finance. So till tomorrow, but thank you so much for triggering me to share this comment. Thank you.
Thank you. There's one at the back, and then, yeah.
Sorry.
Well, thank you. My name is Amir Al-Rajiba. I am representing Saudi Water Partnership Company. The Saudi Water Partnership Company is owned by the Ministry of Finance and managed by the Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture. My question is to the panelists. We have been doing financing and developing water infrastructure projects for more than 2 decades now. And it's been very successful for a long time. And the profound reason for making this successful story is the commitment of the government by providing the sovereign guarantee. And I think the private sector is very much willing to participate in the water development everywhere. The only, or probably the most important part that is required all the time is to provide a guarantee. So my question to the Islamic Development Bank, African Development Bank, Asian Development Bank, other financial institutions, how much they are ready to provide such guarantee in order to secure the private sector risk-sharing model. So instead of giving direct financing to the project, it's indirect by providing the sovereign guarantee and commit to the long-term BOT or BO contracts. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have one more question and then we'll go back to the panel. 2 more questions, but then it's eating in your coffee break, so it's arbitrage.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Alain Messonnier. I'm the president of the Mediterranean Water Institute. And we developed a task force on the Institute about water footprint and water risk. So my question is for you, Hank. Thank you for your intervention. Don't you think that today's the big users of water in agriculture, industry, tourism, etc., big companies are facing water risk every day more and more. And now they include in the strategy the water risk is starting. Don't you think that in the future they could be a good partner to develop blended finance with all these big investment companies, banks, etc., of development? Because they also bring with them performance, efficiency, and that's very important for the water sector. We are lacking efficiency and performance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So one more question, and then we'll go back to here. Yeah.
Thanks, Sophie. Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everyone. I think I'm wearing the only hat here to represent climate finance. And I was surprised, like we talk about risk, we talk about, I think, the Kenyan fund and also the policy about Islamic finance. But we are really missing a key part in the puzzle here, which is the climate finance. And if we look at the role of the climate finance as a representative for like the Green Climate Fund, the largest multilateral fund for Paris Agreement, I think one of the key elements or role of the climate finance is actually to de-risk and take risk sharing, as we've been talking about the risk. So my question here for the panel is looking at the risk sharing. Where do you see climate finance can really help you? Because we are ready to take the risk. We are investing to take the risk sharing. We actually come to de-risk the investment, and we work across all financial instruments, from grants to concessional loans, guarantees, and also bonds. But also we're looking with the Islamic Development Bank to bring the Islamic finance as well. And that become part on our agenda as well. I'm happy to share this with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I'm going to turn to the panel. I think, Hank, there were some questions directed at you. So would you like to go first, perhaps?
Thank you so much. I think it's almost easy, well, not easy, but an opportunity to combine some of your questions. Because as I try to explain, but it's not so easy, I don't expect the Islamic Development Bank or any other bank to become like this very agile private sector hedge fund type of, no. But the funding you provide now is risky, but you perceive risk differently because you fund things in the context of a short-term capture of revenues. This is where climate comes in. Forget about this. You're putting all your assets at risk if you don't take that longer-term perspective. So you're already risking all your investments in the context of not taking into account this broader perspective of climate, biodiversity, and water. Yes, to the private sector, but also to the regional part, it is about setting up these portfolios that are longer-term anchored, that are across sectors, that bring in private sector partners, because again, you don't manage water from the water sector. You manage it to industry, through agriculture, to energy, not to forget, to those transitions. This is where risk and reward sharing happens. These tables have to increase and diversify their partners. And it's not only public and private, it's a totally different way of looking at public and private. So it is development banks, but also national banks. It is not private sector funders, but it's also private sector industry. And that is industry definitely beyond the water industry. And then, yeah, to the question, you can regionalize this. Of course, geographically organizing portfolios of programs and pipelines instead of only going project by project. Project by project is also way too risky. So these portfolio type of approaches that brings in different sectors, that also helps challenge us on these validation mechanisms that we currently have, that prefer short-term profits over longer-term value creation. So we really have to change that, and those conversations in the board have to happen to ensure that it's not about, you have to demystify risk here, because we present risk in the context of that longer term, that's ridiculous. It is really about creating value, and value creation is de-risking in itself. And public sector finance has a key role to play, but not only to de-risk private sector funders, because their revenue streams have to go back also into the public financing mechanism. So we have to take, I think the questions are a part of the solution in the context of how we can organize this differently. And it's possible. We do it over the world, but it lacks scale, it lacks mainstreaming, it lacks the regulations, the policies and practices, and it lacks in the way our accountability and validation mechanisms work. So, but there's lots of opportunity. I'm super hopeful if I hear these questions, because you're all on the verge of the transition. So before you know it, for the next World Water Forum and the UN conference, we have a portfolio to share with the world that can then be scaled and replicated. And that will be then the, what is it, the 17th roundtable, if we take the same sequence of events, to really celebrate together that success. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. Maybe this is my final comment, given the time shortage. And as a representative of the water sector and the government side, I was not smart enough to go to banks and finance school or business school. So I selected hydrogeology and geophysics. But really, I heard colleagues talk about risk sharing or minimizing risk. And I think it is the role of the governments to develop policies and clear regulations to provide protection against risks and transparency process. Our colleagues in the SWPC, in the partnership company that is responsible for private sector participation and engagement, everything is announced and everything is available. There is equal opportunities and there is fair share and opportunity for all companies and contractors. So this is this really provides a conducive and good environment and attractive. Also, I heard some colleague talk about attractiveness of water projects. I think they are very attractive. So if you add the financial reward plus the social responsibility, I think there is incentive enough. I would like to ask a question that our minister usually asks us, and it is, how do we measure our success in any work that we do? What is our target? So we are meeting for the 12th time. What do we expect? In the water sector, again, we are not financiers. We expect the instruments and the tools, the financial tools and funding to come from the banks and development banks and commercial banks. And the gap is huge, really, in the infrastructure, capital investment, and the government's role, as I said, is to provide and make this environment attractive, stable, and transparent enough for the private sector to get engaged. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have to close, so you can be brief. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Now, there was a lot of question on private equity guarantees, what Islamic Development Bank is doing on climate finance, and so on. Just want to respond to some of those to close. I mean, in a nutshell, I think I totally agree with Madame on the table talking about synergies. I think that you're totally right, and I agree with you that the conventional banking is not doing enough, and all of us, all the different stakeholders, from governments to public sector, private sector, has a role to play, and we need to make sure that we work in synergy and we collaborate to deliver. Now, on Islamic finance, we don't, in our toolkit, we don't have private equity. Now, Adnan, you know, my friend and I, we're discussing on some of these instruments. We don't have private equity in our toolkit now, but we have different instruments that are kind of similar. They don't have the hand-holding nature of private equity. They don't have that. But for example, the life and livelihood funds that we have, the Islamic Solidarity Fund that we have in place, they're meant to really help us reduce the cost of borrowing, because one of the main challenges of our countries is the lack of concessional financing. So this is really big in our countries. They don't have, the cost of borrowing is very high. We have a lot of LDMCs, least developed countries. So we need to come up with some kind of instrument that help us reduce costs down. And this is what we've been busy doing. We have these funds, and we have been very successful in really reducing costs in some of the projects through the different funds that we have. So that's one. On the guarantees, I think that one thing that we have also in the group is what the ISEC, we have the insurance kind of arm of the bank, which is providing also risk insurance to de-risk and reduce risk for this type of activities. Climate finance, I mean, we're working together, GCF, we have been accredited, we are already working, and I think that we will do more into this thing. But I just wanted to say, there is a session on Islamic finance, I think tomorrow.
Which is just now.
Oh.
So I think I will have to close,
yes,
because otherwise we're running out of time. The next session is actually at 11:15 on Islamic finance, so we'll have the opportunity to delve into more of a detail of which instruments might be needed. So just to close, I'd like to sort of pick up on your point about how do we measure success, you know, the question that your minister is asking. I think that's absolutely critical, and one of the things that we are planning to do more at the OECD is to track expenditure and investment needs, because we keep sort of banding around these numbers, but you know, we don't actually really know how much is being invested in water, and that's a big gap in our opinion, because it doesn't enable us to really measure success and know whether we're doing better or not. So that's an invitation for all of you also to perhaps support and join this effort, because as a sector we need to be doing much better at measuring our success, and that is also about investment and finance. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Please, you know, when you have a day like this, full of speeches, full of food for thought, as the MC, I'm just looking around the room to see the energy, and still everybody is seated, listening attentively. So we cannot thank you enough. Before I let our panelists go, can we please give them a warm round of applause of a thank you?